Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rogue Guy Media. My name is Alex Schlerf, and today we are going to be doing my review of the new John Wick spinoff, Ballerina. I actually literally just got back from theater from watching this on Friday, June 6th. It's in theaters now. I would definitely recommend you go see this movie, and I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, I'm just gonna be going my review over this movie. Nothing much to enter this aside from the fact that I am a fan of this franchise. I wasn't on the early wave of the John Wick movies. Like I didn't watch them when they came out in theaters, at least the first three. And in the lead up to the fourth one coming out, which I guess that was a couple of years ago now, I binged all the first three and I got really into it. And then the fourth one I think is one of the best action movies of all time, at least in the decade so far. And all the other ones are great too. Four, four and a half, 5 star, whatever you want to say, they're all great. So I love this franchise, even though I wasn't like a day one fan. I kind of got into it. So this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Obviously, not being John Wick being the star of it, but a spin-off movie I think could be a really interesting concept because the world is so huge and critical that to the story that it doesn't need to be Keanu Reeves as John Wick as the main star of the movie to create a good story. And that's how I felt when they announced they were doing a spin-off, and there's other spin-offs that have been announced. There was the Continental TV show, which was terrible, but we learned that Keanu and Chad, um, what's his name? The director of the John Wick movies, his last name's escaping me. They weren't involved with the creative process at all, so that was probably the reason for that. But anyway, I think a spinoff is a very good idea, and many spinoffs in this franchise are a good idea. And another big excitement for me was when Ana De Armas was attached to this movie as the star, as the lead, and that's what I'll start with this movie, I think. First of all, just say I really enjoyed it. I think it definitely fits within the very successful John Wick franchise so far. I don't think it's like one of the better movies. I think it fits more around the number one, number two. I think for me, John Wick 3 and 4 are like 4.5, 5 star, and the first two are kind of like 4 star, just like solid action movies. I think that fits within these. So it definitely fits in the canon of the franchise and is a worthy installment and a worthy spinoff within this world. But yeah, I really did enjoy this movie, and I'll kind of go into the aspects of why. But the number one thing for me is Ana de Armas as the lead, and I've been a big fan of Ana's career since I watched Knives Out, and Knives Out and Blade Runner 2049, which, if you know me, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. She's in both those movies, and she is great in both of them. And that's kind of where I started following her career more and watching more of her projects because she has been so good in those. And she's kind of new onto the scene as well. I mean, I think made her kind of breakout role in War Dogs, and I believe that was like 2014. So it's only been like a decade, and this kind of her big, not big breakout role, big action movie breakout here. And that was why I saw her attached, and I was not like skeptical because I know she has the range for it, but I was like, she's not really known as an action star. Like that's not kind of the roles that she plays. I don't know if she's ever played an action role, at least not to my knowledge. But she totally fit the bill for this movie. She is a action star in the making, if not already. Her style in this movie is really what set it apart for me, is the fact that, it would have been very easy for her to have a distinct similar, or would have been very easy for her to have a style similar to Keanu Reeves as John Wick. And especially in a movie where he cameos in the movie, and that's in the trailers. I'm not spoiling anything there. Keanu has kind of a minimal role, kind of a supporting role in this movie. Um, and especially in a movie where he's in it as well, it would have been very easy for them to just do it where Anna has a very similar style to him or some of the other female supporting characters that have been in this franchise so far. But her style is very distinct in terms of the way she fights, and it's not as much her ballerina background, but it's more just in general. And there's a scene early in the film that is very pivotal where one of her kind of mentors kind of tells her that she is always going to be smaller and always going to be weaker than the people she fights, so she needs to kind of pave her own way and make her own path based on what she's good at. And we get a nice training montage and builds towards that. So I think it was a very natural build up to where the kind of final hour climax or final 45 minutes where she's kind of just fighting the whole time, it was so interesting to see how she used weapons and used grenades and used different things. And Anna was so good. I mean, I think she did the majority, obviously not all, but the majority of her stunts for this movie. And she was just so, she really put herself in this role and made it her own. And I was very impressed. And like I said, she is the number one positive coming out of this movie is that she was phenomenal. And she's just a great actor in general. You need a great actor to carry one of these films. You just need a great actor first, but you also need somebody who can do the action and make it convincing, and again, make it distinct from all that Keanu has done and the amazing things that he's done in the previous four films, and what he also does in this movie, because he gets a couple action moments here. And she does that. She makes it distinct, and I love that about it. Like I said, part of me, this is a big nitpick, but I did kind of want her fighting style to be more in the kind of essence slash elegance of her ballerina background. And I know she kind of puts away with that early on, and I mean, although the movie is called Ballerina and she kind of starts off as a ballerina and that's part of her training, that's clearly kind of just like a cover up slash like I don't know, just another way to kind of torture them is what her kind of tribe does to train her to the person she becomes. But I thought it would have been interesting to see like at least a scene or two of her kind of using those moves in a fighting scene. I was kind of expecting that towards the end and we didn't see it. That's not a huge big deal. I just kind of wanted that. But even still, putting that aside, another really interesting thing she does with her action is her, like I said, her use of weapons. And there's one extended sequence where she used grenades and I think smoke bombs, just kind of different kinds of explosives. And the way she uses them and the way that I'm saying the way her character uses them and how creative it is and how interesting it is and how it's shot and all that, it's something that we've never seen in this franchise before because John Wick is a hands and gun guy, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. That's his style. It's exactly what I'm saying. That's his style. But Anna, with her character, used a lot more tactical weapons and used a lot more like I said, grenades. The whole sequence, of the grenades, and I just really found that interesting, and that was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Is um, I think it came. I don't want to spoil it at all. I mean, you can't really spoil this movie because there's not really much to spoil, which is I'm not gonna have a spoiler section. But like I said, there's a sequence where she's using grenades a lot. If you see the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and I found that so interesting. Um, so yeah, that's really my main big takeaway from this is that the worry about making a spin-off with John Wick also appearing, with Keanu appearing, the worry is that will it just be dragged down by the fact that, oh, where's John Wick? Oh, she's not as good as John Wick. And like, it is impossible to top John Wick and what Keanu has done with that character. But Anna did the absolute best with this being a spinoff and making her own character. She paved her own path. I love the origin piece in this as well. I think it's kind of like the first 40, 45 minutes, we kind of learn her origin. There's a flashback sequence at the beginning, and then we kind of fast forward to her training montage and stuff like that. I loved all that. I thought that was really, really well done from everyone, including especially Anna, of course. And then it kind of gets into the main action of the plot where she's kind of doing this kind of revenge plot. And yeah, but not to move on too much, just to say the other thing I want to say about Anna's performance is that there is an extended sequence very much towards the end where she uses a flamethrower. And again, this is in the trailers, but I'm not going to spoil too much about it. But she uses a flamethrower for like a 10 to 15 minutes, and like I was just sitting there with a big grin on my face, just enjoying the hell out of it. It was just so it's one of those things where like if you've seen this franchise there's always like one of those sequences each movie where like some crazy insane action sequence happens. John Wick 4 was like the whole movie, but in that one I'd say it's the one where he shoots the flamethrower gun. This was up there with that. Like this was up there in all the other action scenes in the movie. Like her, she has a flamethrower, she's fighting someone with a flamethrower. There's an aspect with John Wick in it as well. Like it was just so enjoyable, so well choreographed. Again, everything to do with that specifically, but everything to do with Anna's action sequences in this movie were so well choreographed, which is expected for this franchise. And she played it out to perfection. I don't know how many people could have done this as well as Anna did. I keep saying Anna because I think Anna Taylor-Joy. I don't think anyone could have done this. There were not a lot of people that could have done this as well as Anna in terms of like female action heroes. So I very much enjoyed her in this movie. And again, she was is the lead in the movie, so it makes sense, but she was kind of the best in this movie. The thing about this movie is that with the John Wick franchise, and it gets kind of better towards the end of those four movies, and maybe we'll get more, but just kind of that saga of the character, I'll say, it gets kind of better towards the end. But these movies, the plot is always very flimsy because it's just a simple action movie and it is 75% action. That's just kind of how this thing is. And again, Keanu kind of adds a personal piece in the first one and kind of towards the fourth one as well. But it's the same in all of these movies that it is just action, action, action. And that's why, like, if this franchise is not for you and you've seen these movies and you haven't liked them as much, then you probably won't like Ballerina as much because it is very similar in that sense. It does differentiate it with certain things in the plot, but it is very similar to all the John Wick movies that have come before. So, like I said, if you don't like this franchise, you probably won't. But if you do like this franchise, you will love Ballerina and it'll be in the same vein as everything else. My original point was that the plot is just a bit flimsy, which is why I guess I haven't said my rating yet, but I gave it a 4.5 or a 4 star out of five, not 4.5, a 4 star out of five for this movie. And the reason is just because, like I said, the plot is very, it's not really uninteresting. It's just kind of there. Like there's certain subplots that go on. There's like a sub, like the whole motivation of her character is something that happens very early in the movie, and that kind of a revenge plot is interesting, and it comes to a very satisfying conclusion towards the end. And I'll let you figure out what that is when you see the movie. But like the revenge aspect was good, but certain subplots that were just like whatever, and there's a certain like there was like a 10 minutes period where it was right before the kind of final action sequence comes and when Keanu kind of comes in, that kind of sequence right before that, I was kind of sitting there and I was like, all right, they're kind of losing me a little bit. Because it was just very repetitive and stuff, and eventually it gets to a very good action sequence with Anna and Keanu, and then kind of a good action sequence where the flamethrower comes in. So it kind of redeems itself at the end. But like I said, a movie like this has a ceiling of a 4 star pretty much, unless just it's like that's the difference between like those the John Wick 3 Parabellum and John Wick 4 is that they reached the 4.5, 5 star level and the top tier level because not only is the action unreal and better than all the other movies in this franchise, but there is an interesting plot line too. Like the third one is him getting chased down and there's this clock ticking, and the fourth one is like him fighting against the high table. Like this doesn't really have that interesting villain side plot as compared to those other two movies and kind of all the movies in this franchise. So that's kind of my one main drawback, but I expected that going in. Like, I'm not expecting to go into this ballerina movie and being like, oh, it's going to be some incredible narrative storytelling and it's going to be these crazy themes. Like, no, you're going here to see Ana De Armas destroy people with a flamethrower. And that's exactly what I got. So that's why I enjoyed this so much. And that's why I think it's one of the best of 2025 so far. And yeah, so I wanted to point that out as like, if you don't, if you haven't, give this franchise a chance if you haven't watched it yet. But if you haven't, and you could watch this movie without seeing all the other movies, like there's certain references that you get watching Ballerina that if you are a fan of the franchise, you'll really enjoy, and you'll be Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV. But you can watch this without that. So like if you haven't seen the franchise, don't worry at all. Go into this, watch this movie, and I hope you'll support this movie because I want to see more movies with Anna and in this franchise. But I just wanted to point that out because you can't go into this expecting it's going to be some crazy narrative story. Like there is interesting stuff within it. Like I said, her origin for the first like 40 minutes or so was really good, but the actual villain plot of it is kind of gets boring towards the end. But there is a satisfying conclusion to it, like I said. So again, you'll have to see what that is in the movie. Yeah, I'm trying to think of more positives. Like I said, I really did enjoy the revenge aspect of it, and I think this works as more. Although the first one is a quasi, the first John Wick, I mean, is like a quasi origin story because it's the first time we're seeing the character. It's not really an origin because so much has happened off screen with Keanu, with John Wick, before the movie happens. And a lot of it is kind of us filling in the gaps throughout the movie. Whereas this movie is a true origin for her character. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It was something very creative and not like anything we've seen before in this franchise. And I pointed out a lot that I liked that early sequence, but just in general, like the plot of her finding out things about her past and bringing in characters that she knew before and then bringing them back in the story. Winston from the John Wick movies was one of those people. Seeing them kind of come back in and help her out, and seeing her in her early fights, kind of her first fight that she has is in a nightclub, which by the way, love the nightclub sequences of this franchise. I wish there was more in this movie, but that one was pretty solid. And that sequence we can see she's still very inexperienced, and I think that was supposed to be her first job. And you can see that, and then you can see within the next few fights, she develops her skills a lot more. There's a bit of a time jump there. I think it was like a 2 month time jump, but in like that's just early on. This is not a spoiler. It's early on in the movie. And you can see her a bit of it happens off screen over the time jump, but you can also see in the next few fights she slowly improves more and more to where she gets to this final fight towards the end, and we see how that all ends. And the flame flare fight is basically what I'm talking about. So I really did enjoy that, and I did enjoy like her seeking revenge, and that was kind of her motivation throughout this whole movie, as though she was trying to deny it, and everyone was saying, "You don't need these answers, you don't need these answers," but she didn't care, and she just wanted the revenge, and that's a classic trope for one of these movies, and I enjoy that trope. I think it was good. So um, yeah, everything with that was really good. Um, yeah, I guess I can talk about Keanu in this movie, um, just for a short little while. And I'm trying not, I'm trying to give my review for this separate from the comparing it to all the previous John Wick movies, but it is very easy to do because I mean the title of this movie is like from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. I'm not going to include that in my video title, but that's what the title of this movie is. So it's like they are clearly showing that this is in the same universe, and Keanu's in it and a couple of the other characters are in it, Winston and the front desk assistant. Um so I'm trying not to like put it in the shadow of those John Wick movies, but it is a fair comparison because they are very similar just because of it's in the same universe, but also just in general with the plot and the action and the way everything's choreographed and all that. So it is a worthy comparison. That's why I'm doing it. But anyway, to Keanu returning as John Wick, um, this was something that I was somewhat skeptical about going into it, just because I'm like, if we're doing a spin-off, it can be in the same world and can bring back some of the side characters. Bringing in Keanu is like, to me, it felt like it was something where they're just bringing him in for the promo, and it would have been cooler if they just didn't reveal it. But I guess that's impossible these days to keep that secret. But I was worried they were just doing it to make sure that this movie makes enough money, and in the promo people be like, oh, John Wick's in it. I mean, I don't really care about this new character, but I'll watch it for him. But he does have a very minimal role in this, and I think my concerns were minimized after I watched this movie because he shows up very early, and it's kind of an interesting connection to one of the older movies, and he has like a short interaction with Anna's character, and it kind of sets up when they see each other again later in the movie. And again, keeping it as minimal spoilers as possible, but they do have kind of a, and again, this is all in the trailer. They do have a kind of showdown towards the end, and it is very interesting hearing their dialogue back and forth, and hearing uh from both Anna and Keanu. They're both just so good. Amazing actors, some of the best we have right now. And the way they fight, and like I said, they have very distinct styles as fighters. And although John Wick is more experienced, Anna's character, I'm trying to Eve as her character's name, but I'll just say Anna to make it easier. Her character kind of holds her own throughout some of it, and that makes it interesting. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna get too much into that because it's towards the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but they have a showdown, and eventually, no, that's gonna be a spoiler. Eventually, the way that Keanu kind of ends the story, ends his role in this movie, and the way he finishes that kind of duel with Anna, I think was done very well. And he has no more than like 10 minutes of screen time in this movie. And this is impossible, but if you were going in this movie and you had no idea who Keanu Reeves was, you had no idea what John Wick was, and you just saw this character for the first time, it would have just felt like he was a cool supporting character, and someone who just comes in and kind of is in the plot and one of the supporting characters of the movie. So I like it in that sense, is that they just made him feel like a series regular. It wasn't something where he was overshadowing on his character. He didn't like save the day at the end. Like it was all still focused on Anna as the lead, and he was kind of just there as to be some connective tissue to the previous four movies, and just because it's amazing to see him. And he has one kind of like 30-second solo action sequence, and I was like, I just know that whoever made this movie just fought to get this made because they just wanted to see some Keanu Reeves action. I don't blame them because it was a good sequence. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was a good sequence. But yeah, I was okay with this role in this movie. I say okay. I had no problems with it. I thought it was done very well, and it was done as well as could have been expected. Again, this is well and truly the origin story of Anna's character. This is not uh Anna shows up and Keanu's like there and he's the main. No, like it is fully her story. And yeah, I don't really have any other outstanding thoughts. Like I said, it was nice to see some of the supporting characters come back, and it's just tragic what happened to Lance Reddick, who plays like the receptionist guy at the Continental Hotel. I think it's been over a year now since he passed away, and he filmed this I think this might be his last role, but someone will have to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But he filmed this before he passed away, and just rest in peace to him because his character is so good and so composed, and whenever he's on screen, it would have been very easy for his character to just be forgotten as this kind of like character that barely shows up and just this assistant of the Continental, but he commands a very, what's the best way to put this? His presence and the way he delivers his lines makes him stand out, even if he's such a small character. And again, rest in peace. He just was such a good actor, and I really enjoyed seeing him again in this movie, although it was sad. And then, like I said, seeing Winston as well was cool. What's his name? Norman Reedus has like a very small role in this movie. And I remember seeing him on the press tour, and I thought he was going to be like one of the main characters, but he really wasn't in this movie a lot. But when he was cool. He's great at action. He's funny. There's a cool moment with him towards the end that kind of wraps up his storyline. So that's all good. I mean, it wasn't anything that was outstanding, but the supporting cast here is good. Although, again, Ana De Armas is the focus of this movie, and her character and her origin, and I liked that. I was glad they kind of let her pave her own path. And again, I'm not going to get into spoilers here, but with the way the movie ended, it left it very open for her to return again. And in fact, it really just like not only left it open, it really was like we have to follow up on this based on the way it ended. And I'm just assuming if this movie makes enough money, it makes enough profit that will get made, and either they're still developing a John Wick 5 apparently. I don't know how it's going to happen after the fourth one ended, but the director and Keanu Reeves were saying they're just trying to crack the story, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it does, it does. But now they have options. Now they have a new action star to kind of build around, and maybe they can do a Ballerina trilogy, or maybe they could bring in Anna for the fifth John Wick movie, or maybe they're doing some spin-offs, bring her in for those. Like, I think she is fully integrated in this franchise now, and she can really come in at any point with whatever future films they make. Which I think is great, and I'm glad that, and I hope that happens. I think the early returns on this movie in terms of word of mouth and box office are pretty good. Again, I'm literally seeing this on opening day, so it's too early to tell for that. But oops, please go out and see this movie because I really do want more movies to be made with her as the lead or her as the supporting character. And again, there was no like post credit scene or anything, but the way this movie ended was very like they should make a second one of this, and you can see where they're going to go with it and all that, and it's very John Wick like. It's very much like one of the other films that the John Wick films. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but that's what it is. So yeah, I thought that I hope what I'm trying to say is I really do hope that it does make enough money to make a sequel because I think there's a lot more interesting stories you can tell with her character. And now that this was kind of her origin, now we can see how she operates when she's fully experienced, has gone through this whole revenge arc and has completed this revenge arc for the most part, as far as we know. And I think you can tell a lot of more interesting stories, not only just in this world, and make more spin-offs like this with either supporting characters stepping into a bigger role or another John Wick movie or just a spin-off where it's like a new character. Like this showed that it can be successful, and this showed that they can make a good spinoff in the world without it being just overshadowed by the fact that it's not Keanu Reeves as the star. They proved with this franchise that they can do it if they find the right actor. Because without Anna, this doesn't happen. Like, this isn't as good as it is without her. The way she does the action, the way everything's choreographed, the way her character and the way she acts out the origin, like all of that this movie does not it's not as good as it is without that. So you have to give a lot of credit to her, obviously. And but like what I'm saying is that they can do this again. They can make more like this, but I hope they focus on making I don't really care for a John Wick 5. Like I think the way John Wick 4 ended was so perfect, and that movie is so good. Like again, one of the best action movies I think I've ever seen, that it would just feel weird doing another one. And like I don't want to. I know the movie came out a couple years ago, but I don't want to get into it too much here. But um, I just think the way that movie ended, I'd be kind of frustrated if they prioritized that over making another one of these movies or another new spinoff. So yeah, I mean, if I was them, if this movie makes enough money for them to kind of have the budget to do it again, I go full speed ahead on a Ballerina 2 or whatever you want to call it. Anna's lead again. You can bring back some of the supporting characters more. You can introduce some new supporting characters. Kind of maybe bring some people over from the John Wick movies and set it after John Wick 4, maybe. I think you can do a lot of interesting stuff with that. And I would really like to see more movies with her, as I've said throughout this entire review. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't really have much negatives because, like I said, really the only negative is that like the plot is very simple because it's just a standard action movie, and um, it's hard for an action movie to not for an action movie in general, but for an action movie that's within the John Wick franchise to get very high unless it's like an outstanding cinematic experience. And I'm not saying this isn't a great cinematic experience, but you know what I mean. It's just not up to that level as like John Wick 3 and 4. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any other problems aside from the one I said. It just has kind of that ceiling of a 4 star. And if it was less kind of slow in the middle there where it kind of lost me, then maybe I would have could have been inclined to give this a little bit higher. But right now, it just sits at a 4 star for me, 4 to 5. I really enjoyed this movie, and again, I implore you guys to go see it. Even if you've not seen any of the films in this franchise, again, I give that disclaimer that if you don't typically like action movies, and if you don't like the previous films in the John Wick franchise, then I think you should still give it a chance, but like you probably won't like it as much, just to be honest. But even if you haven't seen any of these films in this franchise, you can go see Ballerina and have a great time with it. If you like action movies, if you like Ana De Armas beating people up and shooting with a flamethrower, if that sounds good to you, then you will love this movie. And I had a really good time with it. I might honestly go see it again at some point because I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so I'm excited for the future of the John Wick franchise. I know they're doing an animated movie that was kind of I think it's like an animated origin of something. They're doing a spinoff with Donnie Yen's character from the fourth movie. Um, I'm sure if this movie does well, we'll hear news of maybe doing another ballerina movie with Anna. And yeah, so I'm excited for the future. I really enjoyed this one, and I just adore this franchise. I know it's like very simple and it's very just action focused, but I enjoy everything about this, and I think the world is so interesting. I guess that could be another positive, is like the world of this franchise is one of my favorite parts about it. The way everything operates, the certain things, and again, they brought in a lot of that for this movie from the John Wick movies. And I think you can just do endless stories of this world. There's so many interesting things you could do, and I know that as long as everyone involved with those previous four movies has creative control around it, like they did for Ballerina, then it will turn out well. And I trust them to make better, not better. I trust them to make good movies like Ballerina and like the other John Wick movies. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Go see Ballerina. It's a lot of fun. Let me just actually, while I'm on here, I did my Letterbox review and I put it on my list. Let me just let you guys know where it is on my 2025 list. So, Ballerina is number 6 out of 38 movies I've seen in theaters so far this year. It's only behind Sinners, Mission Impossible, Thunderbolts, Companion, and Drop. And yeah, so it's number 6 this year so far. 4 star. I mean, there's probably gonna be a lot of movies that go ahead of that, so maybe it'll drop out of the top 10. But really good time, and as I said, one of my favorite movies I've seen in theaters so far this year. So yeah, go see this. It's a great time. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. This might be a shorter review just because it's a very simple movie. But I actually don't even know how long this review has been. Maybe it's like an hour. But yeah, had a lot of fun with Ballerina. Ana de Armas is an action star. I hope to see her in more movies like this, and not just in this franchise, but just in general. See her more action movies and see her more movies in general. She's great. I want to see her in Marvel. Kevin Feige, please listen. I want to see her Marvel. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Alex Schlerf, and I will be back with you next Friday for I don't know what, maybe a Materialist review, maybe a Life of Chuck review. Those are two movies that are coming out on June 13th. So I'm very excited for Materialists, because I love Past Lives and I love the cast. But yeah, either written or video. But no matter what, I have a video every Friday, so you'll hear from me again next Friday, whatever it is. And yeah, links below, social media, website, all that. And thank you so much for watching and supporting as always. And yeah, see ya.